Sometimes the most painful moments become the doorways to freedom. Let me tell you how my girlfriend's 5 words at Denver International Airport changed everything. My name's Michael Harrington. I'm a structural engineer with a passion for designing buildings that last generations. My colleagues call me meticulous, dedicated, reliable, all the boring adjectives that actually make the world function. I've spent 8 years at Westridge Partners, one of Denver's top engineering firms, helping design everything from hospitals to high-rises. Not exactly Instagram material, but I've always taken pride in creating something real. The irony doesn't escape me now. While I was designing structures meant to withstand earthquakes and hurricanes, my personal life was built on a foundation that would crumble under the slightest pressure. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I met Kelly Thompson at my buddy Dave's housewarming party 2 years ago. Dave had just bought a renovated Victorian in the Highland neighborhood, one of those places with exposed brick walls and restored hardwood floors that makes you wonder if you're making all the wrong life choices. I'd spent the previous hour nodding along to conversations about investment properties and cryptocurrency, desperately scanning the room for someone, anyone, who didn't want to talk about their portfolio. That's when I spotted her in the kitchen, rolling her eyes at some guy in a tailored blazer, who was mansplaining natural wine. She wore a simple black dress, nothing flashy, with these vintage leather boots that looked like they'd seen actual adventures rather than just photo shoots. When Blazer Guy finally walked away, I approached with 2 beers and my best conversation starter. So, on a scale from moderately painful to please kill me now, how would you rate that conversation? She laughed, genuine and unfiltered. Somewhere between dental surgery without anesthesia and trapped in an elevator with that guy for eternity. Her name was Kelly Thompson. She worked for Altitude PR, handling social media for local restaurants and boutiques. That night, she seemed refreshingly real in a room full of people performing their best selves. When she described her work, her eyes lit up with ambition and creativity. We connected instantly over craft beers and a shared hatred of pretentious networking events. Most people just want to be seen as something, she said that night, perched on Dave's kitchen counter as the party hummed around us. I'm interested in helping businesses show who they actually are. I remember thinking how rare that kind of authenticity was. Ironic, considering how things turned out. We exchanged numbers, and by the following weekend, we were having dinner at this hole-in-the-wall Vietnamese place she knew about. The kind that doesn't have a website and barely exists on social media, but serves the best pho in Colorado. Our conversation flowed effortlessly for hours. She asked thoughtful questions about my engineering projects, laughed at my terrible jokes about load-bearing walls, and seemed genuinely interested in my weekend woodworking hobby. You build furniture in your spare time? That's so cool, she said, leaning forward. There's something so honest about creating something physical, you know? Something you can actually touch. On our 3rd date, I took her hiking in Boulder. It was early spring, still chilly enough that our breath clouded in the mountain air. At the summit, she took exactly 1 photo of the view, then put her phone away to actually enjoy it. I remember thinking, this is different. She's different. Our relationship developed quickly. Within 3 months, we were spending most nights together, either at my downtown loft or her smaller place in Capitol Hill. She was smart, driven, and seemed to genuinely care about the things that mattered to me. When I rambled about architectural innovations or showed her my latest woodworking sketches, she actually listened, or at least she seemed to. I remember this one night, about 6 months in. I just finished a walnut coffee table, my first piece with proper joinery techniques I'd been studying for months. Kelly came over with takeout and wine to celebrate. She ran her hands over the smooth finish, examined the dovetail joints, and looked at me with what I thought was admiration. This is beautiful, Michael. You're so talented. She pulled out her phone. Let me take a picture for my Instagram. That was the first photo of my work she ever posted. The caption read, "Boyfriend makes magic with his hands. #talented, #craftsmanship, #blessed girl." It got 437 likes, more than her usual posts. Looking back, I should have recognized that moment for what it was. The first brick in a wall that would eventually separate us from reality. The change happened so gradually I barely noticed it. First came the subtle comments about my wardrobe. Babe, you've worn that flannel shirt in like 5 Instagram posts now. People will think you only own one shirt. Then came the not-so-subtle hints about my hobbies. Woodworking is cool and all, but honestly, nobody follows craftsmen except other craftsmen. You should try something more visual. I ignored the warning signs. Everyone has their quirks, right? And Kelly was building something, her personal brand. I told myself it was just professional attention to detail spilling into our personal life. Around our 1-year anniversary, we took a weekend trip to Steamboat Springs. I'd reserved a rustic cabin with a hot tub overlooking the mountains. No television, spotty cell service, just nature and us. The first night, we sat under the stars with glasses of whiskey, wrapped in blankets against the October chill. I've been thinking about making a change, Kelly said, staring into her glass. At work, I mean. A promotion? Different agency? I asked. She shook her head. I'm thinking of going independent, becoming my own brand. She explained how she'd been building her Instagram following on the side, how several small companies had already reached out about potential partnerships, how her engagement metrics were off the charts compared to other Denver-based lifestyle accounts. I've been building other people's brands for years, she explained, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. It's time I built my own. I have a unique voice people want to hear. I believed her. I really did. The timing's perfect, she continued, moving closer. My lease is up next month. We've been talking about moving in together anyway, right? I've been saving, but I need about 6 months to really establish consistent income from sponsorships. It made sense. I had a good salary, a spacious 2-bedroom loft, and I loved her. We made a deal. I'd cover rent and basic expenses for 6 months while she focused on growing her platform. She'd use her savings to invest in her business, photography equipment, editing software, networking events. A partnership with different but equally valuable contributions. I still remember helping her move in. We spent the weekend arranging her clothes in my closet. She needed 80% of the space somehow. Setting up a content corner with perfect lighting for product shots, and celebrating with takeout from our favorite Thai place. I was excited for our future and genuinely proud of her courage to pursue entrepreneurship. That Sunday night, we lay in bed talking about our dreams. Kelly spoke passionately about building an authentic lifestyle brand focused on sustainable fashion and mindful living in Colorado. I shared my idea for eventually combining my engineering knowledge with my woodworking skills to design and build custom furniture. It felt like we were on parallel paths, supporting each other toward meaningful goals. We're going to build an amazing life together, she whispered, before falling asleep in my arms. 3 days later, everything began to shift. I came home from work to find our living room transformed into what looked like a boutique display. Shopping bags from Nordstrom, Anthropologie, and several high-end stores littered the floor. Kelly was in the center of it all, trying on a camel-colored coat that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. What's all this? I asked, trying to keep my tone light. Investment pieces, she said, twirling to show off the coat. The Denver Lifestyle Collective invited me to their winter retreat in Aspen. I can't show up looking basic. I set down my laptop bag and picked up a receipt that had fallen to the floor. The total made my stomach drop. I thought we agreed you'd use your savings for business development, not, this is business development, Michael. Her tone shifted instantly, eyes flashing with irritation. Networking is how influencers get opportunities. Looking the part matters. God, I thought you were supportive. I backed down immediately. What did I know about her industry? Maybe designer clothes were a legitimate business expense. Besides, it was her money. I apologized and helped her photograph the new outfits for her winter lookbook. That became our pattern. I'd express concern, she'd make me feel ignorant about how the industry works, then redirect the conversation to how I could help her create content. Before long, I was spending weekends as her unpaid photographer, equipment carrier, and prop assistant. Hold the reflector higher, Michael. No, higher, and don't get in the shot. Can you drive me to Garden of the Gods? I need sunrise content for this moisturizer campaign. We need to redo dinner. The lighting's wrong and the food's getting cold isn't aesthetic enough. My role in our relationship was transforming from partner to production assistant. Even our intimate moments weren't sacred. Everything became potential content. She'd stop mid-conversation to capture a candid moment for her stories, then continue as if nothing had happened. Our real life began feeling like the behind-the-scenes footage nobody was interested in. There was this one evening that stands out in my memory. I'd had a breakthrough on a challenging structural problem for a new hospital wing, the kind of solution that makes engineers get actually excited. I came home eager to share it with Kelly. She was setting up a flat lay of skincare products on our dining table, carefully arranging rose petals around crystal facial rollers. Kelly, you won't believe what happened today. That load-bearing issue on the Memorial Hospital project? I figured out how to— That's great, babe, she interrupted without looking up. Can you help me with this? I need to get this posted before golden hour ends. I stood there, my excitement evaporating as I watched her meticulously adjust a jade roller 1 millimeter to the left, then back to the right. Sure, I said, swallowing my disappointment. What do you need? Just hold this reflector at exactly this angle and try not to cast a shadow. I spent the next hour helping her capture the perfect image of products she was being paid to promote. She never asked about my day again. When the photo went live that evening, the caption read, "Self-care isn't selfish, it's necessary. Had mindful moments, had me time." The irony wasn't lost on me. That night marked a turning point, though I didn't fully recognize it then. I started keeping a mental tally of how often Kelly asked about my work, my interests, my thoughts. The answer was increasingly never, unless it served her content creation. Conversations became one-sided. Decisions, from where to eat dinner to what art hung on our walls, were made based on what would photograph well or appeal to her audience. 4 months into our living arrangement, Kelly had doubled her follower count to nearly 50,000. She was landing bigger partnerships and getting invited to influencer events across the country. I was genuinely impressed by her hustle. But something else was happening too, a subtle shift in how she treated me in public. The first time was at a restaurant opening she'd been invited to cover. I accompanied her, expecting to enjoy a nice dinner together while she took some photos and notes. Instead, I was relegated to a corner table while she networked with other influencers and industry people. When I approached their table to ask if she wanted another drink, she barely acknowledged me, taking the glass without introducing me to her new friends. Later that night, I mentioned feeling excluded. "Those were business connections, Michael," she sighed, scrolling through the photos she had taken. "Nobody wants to hear about engineering at those events. I was doing you a favor by not putting you on the spot." I swallowed my pride and told myself she was probably right. Social media wasn't my world. Maybe I would have been uncomfortable in those conversations. Then came the clothing critiques. "You're not wearing that to brunch, are you?" became a common weekend question. "Those shoes don't work with anything." "You should let me buy you some decent clothes. I can't have my boyfriend looking like he shops at Target." For the record, I did shop at Target and REI, and occasionally Banana Republic when I needed something nice. My wardrobe was practical, comfortable, and appropriate for my profession. But in Kelly's world, it was a liability. The worst incident happened at a charity gala we attended together. Kelly had been invited as a local influencer to promote the event. I wore my best suit, charcoal gray, tailored, nothing flashy but perfectly appropriate. When we arrived, Kelly immediately tensed beside me. "Oh my God, is that suit from Men's Warehouse?" she hissed as we handed our tickets to the doorman. "What? No, it's— Everyone here is wearing designer. You look like you're at a job interview." She spent the entire evening subtly distancing herself from me, introducing herself to people while I stood awkwardly nearby, not quite included in the conversation. When a photographer approached to take pictures for the event's social media, she angled her body away from mine, creating a boundary that said, "We're not really together." On the drive home, I finally confronted her. "What was that about? You acted like you were embarrassed to be seen with me." "Don't be dramatic," she said, eyes never leaving her phone as she scrolled through the event hashtag. "I was working. You know these events are important for my brand." "Your brand," I repeated. "What about us? What about our relationship?" She finally looked up, her expression a mix of irritation and surprise. as if she couldn't believe I was making such a big deal out of nothing. My brand is our relationship, Michael. Do you think I'd be getting these opportunities if I didn't have this perfect life to showcase? The amazing apartment, the supportive boyfriend, the aspirational lifestyle? We're a package deal. That was the first time I realized. To Kelly, I wasn't a partner. I was a prop, a carefully positioned accessory in the curated museum exhibit of her life. I started noticing other concerning patterns. She'd post Instagram stories about my amazing Saturday making homemade pasta, when in reality I had made the pasta while she directed and filmed. Or she'd share relationship advice about finding a supportive partner after spending the day criticizing my every move. The public version of our relationship, the one her followers saw, was nothing like our reality. Online, we were hashtag couple goals. In private, we were increasingly strangers with competing priorities. There was this particularly painful moment about 5 months into our living arrangement. I was sitting at my desk working on blueprints for a new project when Kelly burst into the apartment, visibly excited. "Michael, guess what? I hit 60K followers." I looked up and smiled. "That's fantastic, Kelly. Congratulations. We need to celebrate. Let's go to that new rooftop place downtown." I glanced at the clock. It was already 9:30 p.m. on a Wednesday. "I'd love to, but I have a 7 a.m. meeting tomorrow with the Structural Review Board. Rain check for Friday?" Her face fell instantly, excitement replaced by cold disappointment. "Are you serious right now? This is a huge milestone for me. Do you know how many influencers in Denver have this kind of following?" "I know it's important," I said carefully. "And I'm really proud of you. I just can't go out drinking until midnight tonight." "Fine," she snapped. "I'll call Jade. At least she understands what this means." She stormed into the bedroom to change. 20 minutes later, she left without saying goodbye, dressed in an outfit I'd never seen before. Probably another investment piece I wasn't supposed to question. Around midnight, her Instagram stories started appearing. Kelly and her influencer friends popping champagne, Kelly laughing at something off camera, Kelly with her arm around some guy I'd never seen before, his hand resting a little too comfortably on her waist. The caption, "Celebrating 60K with people who actually support me. Hashtag blessed, right people, right tribe." That one stung, but still, I made excuses. She was building something important. The pressure to maintain a perfect image was part of her job. Things would balance out once she reached her goals. This pattern continued for weeks. Kelly's demands on my time, my space, and my finances increased, while her interest in my life diminished proportionally. The 6-month timeline we'd agreed upon was approaching, but there was no discussion of her contributing financially or finding a sustainable business model beyond sponsored posts and affiliate links. Then came the Miami trip. Kelly had been invited to an exclusive influencer retreat sponsored by a major skincare brand. 5 days in South Beach, followed by a weekend in New York for meetings with potential sponsors. It was her biggest opportunity yet, and she was ecstatic. "This is it, Michael. These are the exact connections I need to break into the national market. The guest list is insane. People with millions of followers will be there." I helped her prepare for days, organizing outfits, charging camera equipment, even practicing potential networking conversations. Despite the strain in our relationship, I wanted her to succeed. Her success was supposed to be our success, right? The night before her departure, I suggested a quiet dinner at home. Just the two of us, no phones, no photos, just reconnecting before her big trip. I cooked her favorite meal, opened a nice bottle of wine, even lit candles. For the first 15 minutes, it felt like old times. Kelly talked about her hopes for the retreat, and I shared some ideas for furniture projects I wanted to start. Then her phone buzzed, and buzzed again, and again. "Sorry, it's Tiffany and Jade. They're freaking out about what to pack for Miami." She picked up her phone, and just like that, our dinner was over. For the next 2 hours, I watched as she texted furiously, occasionally laughing at something I wasn't privy to. Around 10 p.m., I silently cleared the dishes and loaded the dishwasher while Kelly created a detailed packing spreadsheet with her influencer friends. I woke up at 5 a.m. to make her favorite breakfast before taking her to the airport. She emerged from the bedroom looking like she was heading to a fashion shoot rather than a 6-hour flight. Designer jeans, a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly car payment, and full makeup. You look beautiful, I said, sliding a plate of avocado toast toward her. She glanced at the food, then at her watch. Thanks, but I'm meeting Tiffany and Jade for smoothies at the terminal. We need to get some pre-flight content. Can we go soon? The breakfast I'd made sat untouched as I helped load her excessive luggage into my Subaru and drove her to Denver International. She was unusually quiet during the ride, obsessively checking her phone and reapplying lip gloss. Nervous, I asked, trying to find some connection. Just focused, she replied without looking up. Tiffany and Jade are already at the airport. They've worked with this brand before, so they're introducing me to the marketing director. Tiffany and Jade were fellow Denver influencers with larger followings than Kelly. They'd been friendly but competitive with her in the past, and I knew she desperately wanted their approval. You've got this, I said, reaching for her hand. Just be yourself. She gave me a strange look. Being myself isn't exactly the point, Michael. Those words hung in the air between us as I pulled up to the departures terminal and put the car in park. Want me to help with the bags? I asked, trying to ignore the sting of her comment. Sure, but just drop them at the curb. I can handle it from there. Her tone was oddly dismissive, but I ignored it. I hopped out, unloaded her 3 suitcases for a 5-day trip, and was about to give her a goodbye kiss when I spotted them. 2 women in matching cream-colored loungewear sets, oversized sunglasses, and designer luggage, waiting near the entrance. Your friends are over there, I said, nodding toward them. Want me to help bring the bags over? That's when it happened. Kelly looked at Tiffany and Jade, then back at me in my ordinary jeans, work boots, and Denver Broncos cap. Her expression shifted to something I'd never seen before, pure, undisguised contempt. No, she said, lowering her voice. Don't walk next to me. You'll embarrass me in front of my friends. Time seemed to stop. 5 words that crystallized everything wrong with our relationship. What did you just say? I asked, certain I'd misheard. Look at them. Then look at you, she hissed, gesturing discreetly. This is a professional trip. I can't have them thinking I'm... She trailed off, but her meaning was clear. I wasn't stylish enough, successful enough, Instagram worthy enough. In that moment, something broke and something else became crystal clear. For 6 months, I'd been making excuses for Kelly's behavior, telling myself it was just the pressure of her career. But standing there on the curb, I suddenly saw the truth. I wasn't her partner. I was a convenience, a financial safety net, a behind-the-scenes assistant who needed to remain invisible to her public life. I could have made a scene, could have called her out right there in front of her precious influencer friends. Instead, I felt a strange calm wash over me. Have a good trip, I said quietly. She looked momentarily surprised, then relieved. Thanks, I'll text when I land. Then she grabbed her designer luggage and walked toward Tiffany and Jade without looking back. I stood rooted to the spot, watching as she air-kissed her friends, instantly transforming into a different person. Animated, effusive, belonging. Within seconds, one of them was filming the 3 of them for what I assumed would be a Squad Goals airport post. As I got back in my car, a memory surfaced. 6 months earlier, when Kelly and I had flown to Chicago to visit my brother, she'd held my hand through the terminal, leaned her head on my shoulder during boarding, and taken a selfie of us toasting tiny whiskeys when we reached cruising altitude. The caption, "Adventures are better with your best friend. Ash, lucky girl, and my better half." What had changed? Not me. I was still the same person. But something had changed for Kelly, her perception of my value in her carefully curated life. I sat in the parking garage for a long time, engine off, replaying the last 6 months like a movie. All the small compromises, the subtle shifts in our dynamic, the gradual erosion of mutual respect. And finally, those 5 words that made everything impossible to ignore. Don't walk next to me. On the drive home, instead of anger, I felt something unexpected. Relief. The fog had lifted. I knew exactly what I needed to do. First stop, the Avis rental car office, where Kelly's leased Mercedes was registered in my name. A necessary business expense she'd convinced me to sign for 3 months earlier. I explained the situation to the manager, paid the early termination fee, and handed over the keys. It wasn't cheap, but it was worth every penny to sever that connection. Happens more often than you'd think, the manager said sympathetically as she processed the paperwork. My ex-husband put me on the hook for a BMW he couldn't afford. Took me 2 years to clean up that mess. Next, a call to Denver Storage Solutions to arrange a unit and moving service. The friendly woman on the phone didn't bat an eye when I explained I needed to move someone's belongings while they were away. Breakups happen every day in this city. We have a white glove service that can pack and transport everything, she explained. Just need to know how much we're moving and when you need it done. I scheduled them for the following day and paid the 3-month rental fee up front. Another expense I hadn't planned for, but again, worth it. Final stop, Home Depot for new locks and a security camera doorbell. The old-fashioned part of me felt guilty about changing the locks on an apartment Kelly had been living in, but the rational part remembered that her name wasn't inked on the lease. She had contributed exactly $0 to our housing in 6 months. As I loaded the supplies into my car, I got a text notification. Kelly had posted her first Miami story, a boomerang of 3 champagne glasses clinking with South Beach visible through a hotel window. The caption, "Let the business retreat begin. Had blessed ash girl boss hat work trip." No mention of me, no missing my man back home, not even a generic thanks for the airport ride. I was already being edited out of her narrative. By the time I returned home, I had a plan in motion and a strange sense of peace. I spent the evening sorting through Kelly's things, separating them into categories for the movers. Her extensive wardrobe filled 17 large boxes. Her makeup and skincare products required 6 more. The special lighting equipment, tripods, and content creation accessories took another 4. As I worked, I noticed something remarkable. Almost nothing in our shared space reflected my personality or interests. The apartment had slowly transformed into a backdrop for Kelly's content, neutral, trendy, and entirely impersonal. My woodworking tools had been relegated to a closet because they ruined the aesthetic. My books were hidden behind decorative covers that matched her preferred color scheme. Even the refrigerator contained only photogenic foods in clear glass containers. I'd been erased from my own home, one subtle adjustment at a time. Around midnight, I took a break and checked my phone. No messages from Kelly, but she'd posted several more Miami updates. Checking into a luxury hotel, poolside cocktails, group photos with other influencers. I noticed something strange in these posts. In each one, she was positioned front and center, always the focal point. The other women, including Tiffany and Jade, were slightly out of focus, positioned to frame Kelly rather than share the spotlight. I wondered if they felt used the way I had. That night, I slept better than I had in months. No interruptions for night routine content. No arguments about whether my reading light was ruining her sleep quality. No performative cuddling for the perfect morning Instagram story. The next morning, the moving team arrived promptly at 9. They were efficient and professional, asking minimal questions as they carefully packed Kelly's remaining belongings. By noon, every trace of her was gone, except for a small box of items that might have been mine or might have been shared. I left those in the hall closet to deal with later. While the movers worked, I'd been making calls, first to my bank, where I closed our joint account, which I'd primarily funded, and transferred my money to a new account. Then to my credit card companies, removing her as an authorized user. I even called the local coffee shop where I'd set up a tab for her daily oat milk lattes and protein bowls, another business expense I'd been covering. With each call, I felt lighter. I wasn't being vindictive. I was simply disentangling our lives with the same methodical approach I used in my engineering work. Problem identified, solution implemented. Kelly texted twice during this process. Once a generic landed in Miami message with a beach emoji, and later a photo of herself and her influencer friends at some rooftop bar, captioned, "Networking in Paradise." I didn't respond to either. By Wednesday evening, 3 days after the airport incident, the transformation was complete. New locks installed. Kelly's belongings safely in storage. Financial ties severed. I even changed my Netflix and Spotify passwords. Small things, but symbolic. Then came the part I was most excited about, reclaiming my space. The second bedroom that Kelly had used as her content studio was the first target. I cleared out the ring lights and backdrops, then brought up my woodworking tools from the building's storage unit. I ordered a proper workbench, mounted my tool wall, and set up the lathe I'd bought months ago, but never had space to use. The living room came next. I rearranged the furniture to my preference, comfortable rather than photogenic. My engineering books and outdoor magazines came out of hiding. I hung the abstract metal wall sculpture my brother had welded for my birthday, the one Kelly had declared not on brand, and banished to the closet. By Friday night, the apartment looked completely different. It looked like me. I ordered pizza, opened a beer, and sat in peaceful solitude for the first time in months. No staged dinner photos, no interruptions to capture the golden hour lighting. Just real life, unfiltered. That weekend, I reconnected with friends I'd gradually lost touch with, not intentionally, but because Kelly had subtly isolated me from people who didn't serve her content needs. I met my old college roommate, Tom, for beers at our favorite dive bar, a place Kelly had deemed too dark for good photos and therefore unworthy of our time. Damn, man, it's been, 4 months? Tom said as he slid into the booth across from me. Probably closer to 6, I admitted. Things have been complicated? More like curated. I gave him the condensed version of what had happened. Tom nodded throughout, unsurprised. Not gonna lie, we all kind of saw it coming. Remember Jake's wedding last fall? I did remember. Kelly had spent the entire reception taking photos for her Instagram rather than actually participating in the celebration. When she wasn't documenting the stunning floral arrangements or the absolutely magical venue, she was critiquing my dancing and suggesting I not have a third beer because it was giving bloated vibes. She changed, man, Tom said, signaling for another round. Or maybe this was always who she was, and she just got better at showing it. That hit home. Had Kelly always been this person, and I'd just been too infatuated to notice? Or had the allure of social media validation transformed her from the authentic woman I'd met into someone who valued perception over reality? Either way, the result was the same. We were fundamentally incompatible. I wanted a partner. She wanted a prop. Saturday night, I was supposed to meet some friends at a local brewery when my phone buzzed with a notification. Kelly had tagged me in an Instagram post, the first time she'd mentioned me on social media since leaving for Miami. Curious, I opened it. It was a photo from months earlier, Kelly and me at a mountain overlook, my arm around her shoulders, both of us smiling at the camera. The caption made my stomach turn. Missing my rock back home while I'm working in Miami. Distance makes the heart grow fonder. Can't wait to see this one in a few days. Hashtag love him, hashtag long distance relationship, hashtag couple goals. The comments were filled with heart emojis and supportive messages. You guys are the cutest. Relationship goals AF. He's a keeper. The way he looks at you, my heart. I stared at the photo, remembering the reality of that day. We'd been hiking with Dave and his girlfriend when Kelly insisted we climb to a dangerous outcropping for the shot. When I expressed concern about the stability of the rock, she'd called me paranoid and no fun. We'd argued the entire hike back to the car. Yet here was this moment, repackaged as hashtag couple goals, shared with thousands of strangers who believed we had something worth envying. I took a screenshot of the post, then blocked Kelly on Instagram and every other social platform. I didn't want to be part of her narrative anymore. Neither the public ones she shared with her followers, nor the private ones she was likely constructing to explain my absence. Kelly was scheduled to return from New York on Sunday evening. I knew the confrontation was coming, but I felt prepared. This wasn't about revenge, it was about self-respect. Sunday arrived, and with it, the inevitable text. Landing at 7:40, can you pick me up? I replied simply, no, we need to talk, but not at the airport. Your things are in storage. Unit information will be sent to your email. Her response was immediate. What the hell, Michael? Is this a joke? Not a joke. Your access to the apartment has been revoked. I've paid for 3 months of storage for your belongings. The phone rang seconds later. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again and again. Text messages flooded in, evolving from confusion to anger to threats. You can't do this. This is my home too. I'm going to sue you. All my stuff is there. Do you know how much my equipment costs? Answer your phone right now. You're making a huge mistake. I have a brand deal meeting tomorrow. I need my things. I turned off notifications and went for a long walk through my neighborhood. This wasn't a conversation to have while emotions were running hot. When I returned, I sent one final message with the storage unit information, the code to access it, and a simple statement. I deserve better than don't walk next to me. Good luck with your influencer career. Then I blocked her number. Of course, that wasn't the end. Kelly still had mutual friends, social media platforms, and apparently a spare key she'd given to her friend Jade for emergencies. I discovered this last fact when my new doorbell camera alerted me to activity outside my apartment around midnight. The footage showed Kelly and Jade attempting to use a key, then looking confused and increasingly angry when it didn't work. I watched through the app as Kelly pounded on the door, yelling loud enough for the neighbors to hear. After 5 minutes, my neighbor across the hall opened his door and said something that made them leave. I made a mental note to thank him with a nice bottle of bourbon. The next morning, I had a visit from the building manager. Mr. Harrington, he said when I opened the door, looking uncomfortable. We received some concerning reports about a disturbance last night. I showed him the doorbell footage. My ex-girlfriend tried to enter without permission. I've changed the lock since she's no longer living here. He nodded, relieved. That explains it. She came to the office this morning claiming you'd illegally evicted her and demanding we let her in. Her name isn't on the lease, I reminded him. She's never paid rent. That's what I told her. She wasn't happy about it. That was an understatement, I'm sure. Kelly wasn't accustomed to not getting her way. The social media storm began that afternoon. Kelly posted a tearful Instagram story about being suddenly homeless and blindsided by her controlling boyfriend. She carefully framed the narrative to make herself the victim, claiming I had thrown away her things and changed the locks without warning because I was threatened by her success. I might have worried about this character assassination. Except for one crucial detail, our mutual friends knew better. Dave, who'd hosted the party where we met, immediately called to check on me. Dude, what's this drama Kelly's posting? You okay? I gave him the condensed version, including the airport comment. She actually said that? Jesus, Mike. I always thought she was a bit much with the social media stuff, but that's cold. Yeah, well, it was the wake-up call I needed. For what it's worth, nobody's buying her victim story. We've all seen how she's been treating you. That was the thing about Kelly's curated life. It might have fooled her online followers, but the people who knew us in real life had witnessed the gradual transformation of our relationship. They'd seen her dismiss my interests, criticize my appearance, and increasingly treat me like an accessory rather than a partner. Several friends reached out with similar messages of support. Even Kelly's former colleague from Altitude PR contacted me through LinkedIn. I hope this isn't inappropriate, but I wanted to say I'm sorry about what happened with Kelly. We've seen this behavior before. She did the same thing with her previous boyfriend. You're not the first guy she's used as a stepping stone. That message stung, but also validated my decision. This was a pattern for Kelly, not an isolated incident. The most unexpected call came from Tiffany, one of the influencers from the airport. I almost didn't answer the unknown number, but something told me to pick up. Is this Michael? It's Tiffany Harrison. I was immediately on guard. How did you get my number? From Jade, who got it from Kelly's phone while she was in the shower. She paused. Look, I know this is weird, but I wanted to tell you something. I'm listening. Kelly told us you guys broke up because you were controlling and jealous of her career, that you couldn't handle her success. Is that so? Yeah, but that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling because I saw how she talked about you at the airport, and it was not cool. And then in Miami, she was already flirting with some hotshot photographer on the first day, showing him your apartment like it was hers, talking about how she was going to upgrade to someone more aligned with her brand when she hit 100K followers. I wasn't sure what to say. Why was this woman, essentially a stranger, telling me this? As if reading my mind, Tiffany continued, I've been in this influencer world for 3 years now. I've seen a lot of fake relationships, staged content, people using each other for clout. But what Kelly was doing, planning to dump you while letting you support her, that crossed a line for me. Why tell me this now? Because she's telling everyone who'll listen that you blindsided her. And it's not right. And honestly, I'm tired of the fakeness in this industry. It's exhausting. After we hung up, I sat with this new information. Kelly had been planning to leave all along once she'd extracted maximum value from our relationship. The airport incident had simply accelerated her timeline. Meanwhile, her online victim campaign was backfiring. Without access to my apartment, her preferred backdrop for content, and with limited funds now that my financial support had ended, her posts became inconsistent and increasingly desperate. When a few of our mutual friends publicly commented with the truth, her followers began questioning the narrative. Within a week, she deleted the accusations and pivoted to vague posts about healing and moving forward. According to Dave, she'd moved back in with her parents in the suburbs, a fact conspicuously absent from her social media. The glamorous influencer lifestyle was hard to maintain from a childhood bedroom in Littleton. As for me, I was discovering something unexpected. Freedom. With Kelly gone, I rediscovered passions I'd set aside. I spent evenings in my new workshop, creating furniture pieces I'd sketched years ago but never built. I reconnected with friends I'd neglected. I even joined a local hiking group that met at dawn on Saturdays, something Kelly had dismissed as getting up early to walk nowhere. There was an adjustment period, of course. I'd grown accustomed to the constant presence of someone else, even if that presence had become increasingly toxic. Some nights I'd catch myself automatically moving a lamp for better lighting or hesitating before eating something unphotogenic. Small habits that showed how deeply Kelly's priorities had infiltrated my daily life. But with each passing week, those habits faded. I stopped thinking about how activities would look on social media and started focusing on how they actually felt. I deleted Instagram from my phone. I bought shirts I liked without considering their personal brand alignment. I rearranged my furniture 3 times just because I could. 3 weeks after the airport incident, I made an impulsive decision. I booked a 2-week motorcycle trip down the Pacific Coast Highway. I'd wanted to do this ride for years, but had always found reasons to postpone it. Work commitments, relationship obligations, practical concerns. Now, with 2 weeks of vacation time saved up and no one to answer to, I simply went. The trip was transformative. I rode from Seattle to San Diego, camping most nights and staying in small coastal towns when I needed a real shower. I met fascinating people, took thousands of photos, none staged for social media, and spent hours watching sunsets without feeling compelled to document them for strangers' approval. In a small coastal town in Oregon, I stopped for lunch at a woodworking cooperative where local artisans created and sold handcrafted furniture. I spent the afternoon talking shop with a 70-year-old former architect who'd abandoned commercial building design to make custom dining tables. I got tired of designing spaces people only occupy to impress others, he told me, as he demonstrated a joinery technique. Now I make things people actually live with, that become part of their daily lives. More honest work, if you ask me. His words resonated deeply. I'd spent my career designing structures meant to serve practical purposes, yet somehow I'd allowed my personal life to become a backdrop for someone else's performance. That evening, sitting on a cliff overlooking the Pacific, I started recording a video, not for followers or likes, but as a personal journal. I talked about the engineering marvels of the bridges I'd crossed, the woodworking inspiration I'd found in that small Oregon town, the meditative quality of long-distance motorcycle riding. When I watched it later in my tent, I realized it was exactly the kind of content I'd always found interesting, but Kelly had dismissed as niche and unmarketable. On a whim, I edited it slightly and uploaded it to YouTube under the title, Engineering the Perfect Road Trip. I thought maybe a few fellow engineers or motorcycle enthusiasts might find it interesting. I certainly didn't expect the notification I received 3 days later. Your video has reached 10,000 views. Apparently, authentic content about real experiences had an audience too. Who knew? By the time I returned to Denver, my impromptu YouTube channel had gained nearly 5,000 subscribers. Comments praised the refreshing lack of hype and actual informative content about the engineering behind beautiful places. Several viewers specifically mentioned enjoying the woodworking segments I'd filmed in my hotel room one rainy evening. The irony wasn't lost on me. While Kelly had been meticulously crafting a personal brand based on what she thought people wanted, I'd accidentally created content people actually connected with by simply being genuine. When I walked into my apartment after 2 weeks on the road, I felt like I was truly coming home for the first time in months. My space, my aesthetic, my life. There was one final confrontation with Kelly. It happened about a month after my return from the road trip. I was leaving my office building when I spotted her sitting on a bench near the entrance, obviously waiting for me. She looked different, more like the woman I'd met at Dave's party than the influencer who'd told me not to walk beside her. Simple jeans, minimal makeup, hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. For a moment, my heart softened. Then she spoke. "Your little YouTube channel is doing well," she said. No greeting, no preamble. 18,000 subscribers now, right? Not bad for someone who knows nothing about content creation. And just like that, any nostalgia I might have felt evaporated. This wasn't about reconciliation or closure. This was about competition. "What do you want, Kelly?" She stood, smoothing her jeans in a gesture I once found endearing, but now recognized as performative. "I thought we should talk about a collaboration. Your engineering angle plus my lifestyle content. It could be a unique offering. We'd reach different demographics." I stared at her, trying to process what I was hearing. After everything that had happened, she saw our relationship, or what remained of it, as a potential business opportunity. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You want to leverage my YouTube success for your content?" "It would be mutually beneficial," she insisted. "Your followers are mostly men. Mine are primarily women. We could cross-promote." I shook my head, not in refusal but in disbelief. "You told me not to walk next to you because I'd embarrass you. Now you want to put me in your videos?" "That was a momentary lapse in judgment," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "I was stressed about the Miami trip. You know how important first impressions are in my industry." "Our entire relationship was a momentary lapse in judgment," I replied. "And no, I don't want to collaborate. I don't want to cross-promote. I don't want anything to do with your carefully constructed reality." Her expression hardened. "You're making a mistake. Do you know how hard I've worked to build my platform? How many connections I have? I could help you reach 100,000 subscribers in months. I'd rather have 100 subscribers who appreciate authentic content than 1 million who are there for a performance." I stepped around her. "Goodbye, Kelly." "This isn't over," she called after me. "You'll regret turning me down when some bigger influencer steals your concept and does it better." I didn't look back. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. 6 months after the airport incident, my life is unrecognizable in the best possible ways. My YouTube channel, Structural Integrity, has become a modest success with over 100,000 subscribers. I post a mix of engineering explanations, woodworking projects, and travel adventures, all filmed and edited myself without concern for looking Instagram-worthy. The woodworking hobby has evolved too. I've sold several custom furniture pieces through a local gallery, and I'm considering taking a partial sabbatical from my engineering firm to explore this creative avenue further. Turns out there's a substantial market for handcrafted items with architectural influence. As for Kelly, our paths haven't crossed directly since that day outside my office. But Denver is a small city. According to mutual friends, her influencer career stalled after several brands dropped her following the social media drama. She's working at a boutique in Cherry Creek now, back to promoting other people's brands rather than her own. Her Instagram is still active but scaled back, focusing more on local events than aspirational lifestyle content. I don't wish her ill. In a strange way, I'm grateful for those 5 cruel words at the airport. Without them, I might have spent years trying to earn the approval of someone who saw me as a prop rather than a partner.